I want you to consider the architecture of a daydream.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
Right, because we all have that, that universal human experience where you're staring out a window or maybe you're stuck on a really long commute.
Oh, yeah, just completely zoning out.
Exactly. Your conscious mind just completely detaches from your physical environment.
You're physically there, but mentally you're miles away.
Yeah, you start playing out an entire scenario in your head. It could be a conversation you're hoping to have tomorrow.
Or rehearsing an argument.
Yes. Relitigating an argument from like 5 years ago where you finally deliver the absolute perfect comeback.
But when you wish you'd thought of it at the time.
Right. And for a fleeting moment, that internal simulation feels structurally sound, like it feels real.
Your body definitely reacts as if it's real.
It does. Your heart rate might actually elevate. You might catch yourself making a physical facial expression.
Yeah, reacting to a phantom person who isn't even in the room.
It's kind of wild when you catch yourself doing it. But what's happening there is that your brain is temporarily rerouting its processing power.
Away from sensory input.
Yeah, away from the real world and dedicating it to this internal rendering. And we all do this. It's totally harmless.
Usually.
But I want to pose a question to you right at the top of our deep dive today. What happens if you take that localized temporary simulation and you apply a terrifying amount of sustained, deliberate concentration to it?
Oh, wow.
Like, what if you refuse to let the daydream collapse?
That is a very unsettling thought.
Right. Today, we are going to explore the possibility that if you focus on a mental image intensely enough, it might stop being a mere thought.
And actually begin to assert its own existence.
Exactly. It's a concept that completely messes with how we view the world.
It really does. It forces us to question the structural integrity of reality itself, honestly.
Because we operate on this, this fundamental assumption that there is a hard, impenetrable firewall
between the subjective world inside our skulls and the objective physical space we share.
Right. The idea that thoughts stay in your head and objects stay in the room.
Right.
But today, we're tracking the bizarre, winding evolution of a specific phenomenon that allegedly breaches that firewall. We're looking at a source document today titled tulpachat.pdf.
A fascinating text.
It really is. And our mission today is to use this document to trace this idea from its absolute origins in ancient Tibetan Buddhist mysticism.
And watch how it gets completely contorted.
Oh, entirely warped by early 20th century Western explorers. And then see how it's been radically reverse engineered by modern internet subcultures today.
Not to mention how it forms the backbone of weird fiction and the occult.
Yes. So we are looking at the ultimate mind over matter scenario today. Okay, let's unpack this.
And I think it's really important to establish right away that tracking the evolution of the tulpa isn't just, some exercise in esoteric history.
No, not at all.
It's actually a mirror. It reflects our changing understanding of human psychology, cognitive load, and the sheer force of focused attention.
Right.
It also provides this sort of masterclass in how cultural transmission works. Or, I should say, how it fails.
How it fails miserably, yeah.
Exactly. Because when an incredibly complex ancient tradition gets translated across time and geography, the original intent often gets stripped away.
Leaving something completely different.
And sometimes deeply volatile in its wake.
Well, I want to start exactly there at ground zero, to understand what a tulpa fundamentally is before it gets warped by a century of misinterpretation.
That's the best place to start.
So in the context of Tibetan Buddhist mysticism, the text defines a tulpa as a thought form or an entity that is willed into existence.
Willed into existence.
Yeah, but I have to imagine willed in this ancient context doesn't just mean like wishing really hard.
Oh, far from it.
Yeah.
That phrase, willed into existence, carries a profound methodological weight in the source material.
Like it's an actual discipline.
Exactly. In this mystical framework, willing something is not a passive desire. It is an active, grueling application of cognitive force.
Grueling is a good word for it.
It is strictly rooted in rigorous practices surrounding meditation and manifestation. You aren't just hoping for an entity to appear.
Right, you're not just crossing your fingers.
No, you are attempting to take the abstract, ephemeral, raw material of human consciousness and forge it into something with architecture and permanence.
So we are talking about a highly disciplined, deliberate process here.
Very deliberate.
But here is the friction point for me. If the popularized Western understanding of a tulpa, if someone has stumbled across the term in a movie or a paranormal blog.
Right, the pop culture version.
Yeah, the pop culture version is a massively simplified and arguably completely distorted reading of that original source tradition.
It absolutely is.
It's like taking a complex, ancient classical symphony and turning it into a 10-second pop ringtone.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah. What does it say about Western esoteric vocabulary that we stripped away all the deep meditation and just kept the magical result?
We flattened it. And the mechanics of that distortion are really fascinating. The original Tibetan practice, as understood in its native mystical context, was inherently tied to the pursuit of enlightenment.
Okay, so it wasn't just a party trick.
Not at all.
Oh.
The goal of generating a thought form was often to deeply internalize the illusory nature of all reality.
Wait, hold on. Break that down for me.
So, if you can prove to yourself that you can build an entity out of pure thought that feels entirely real,
Right.
you can currently prove that the physical world you interact with every day might be equally constructed.
Or empty of inherent reality.
Precisely. The tulpa was a tool for spiritual realization.
A way to prove that everything is an illusion by creating a deliberate illusion.
Yes.
But the West didn't want this spiritual realization.
No, we just wanted the magic trick.
Let's be real. We just wanted the shortcut.
When this concept crosses into Western esoteric vocabulary, it suffers a severe case of cultural mistranslation.
Yeah, we have a bad habit of doing that.
We do. The West has historically approached the esoteric with a very results-oriented mindset.
We want the manifestation.
We want the supernatural spectacle, yeah. But we completely lack the cultural patience for the decades of ego dissolution that's required to perform it safely.
We stripped away the philosophical scaffolding and just kept the sensational outcome.
Exactly.
It makes me think of someone buying a Formula One race car just to drive it to the grocery store.
And then being shocked when they crash it.
Yes, exactly. We imported this highly specialized psychological technology without bothering to translate the safety manual.
That's a great way to put it.
And that actually brings us to the historical patient zero of this Western distortion.
Alexandra David Neal.
Right. She is largely credited in the text as the person who introduced the tulpa to the Western esoteric vocabulary in the early 20th century.
She is a pivotal figure in this trajectory.
Why is that?
Because she forces the concept out of the realm of abstract mystical theory and into practical, documented experience.
Right. She wasn't just reading about it.
No, she was a French explorer who traveled extensively in Tibet. She wasn't just translating texts in a comfortable European library.
Which was common back then.
Very common.
Yeah.
But she was on the ground, immersing herself directly in the source environment, which honestly was an astonishing feat for that era.
Definitely. But what makes her vital to our understanding of the tulpa is her specific claim.
Yes.
The text notes she stated that she actually engaged in the practice and successfully created one.
Which is an incredible claim.
To say you have mastered a foreign, ancient technique of mental manifestation is quite the flex.
It really is.
But the narrative takes a very dark turn right after that.
It does.
After successfully building this entity in her mind, the account states that she later struggled to dissolve it.
And that is the crucial detail.
I have to admit, that detail is where my brain just starts looping.
Wait, so she successfully built this entity in her mind, but couldn't get rid of it?
That's what she claimed.
It's like a rogue AI, but built entirely out of her own consciousness.
Yeah.
How does a thought refuse to be unthought?
That is the core psychological puzzle here. It forces us to examine the permanence of belief, really, and the architecture of a thought.
Because if I imagine a purple elephant right now, I am the one generating it.
Right.
The second I decide to think about what I'm having for dinner, the purple elephant ceases to exist.
Because you withdrew your processing power.
Exactly. So how does a thought sustain itself without you actively thinking it?
Well, to understand that, we have to look at how neural pathways and habituated cognition function, even outside of mysticism.
Okay, give me an example.
Think about a song that gets stuck in your head.
Oh, the worst.
Or, an intrusive, anxious thought. You actively want to stop thinking about it?
But you can't. Right, because your brain has carved such a deep, autonomous groove that the thought sustains itself without your conscious permission.
Wow. Okay, I see where you're going.
Now, scale that up exponentially. The text implies that there is a critical threshold in this process of willing an entity into existence.
A point of no return.
Exactly. Before you cross that line, you are pushing the boulder up the hill. You are in total control of the mental exertion.
But once you cross it...
Once you cross it, the entity gains its own momentum. The thought form achieves a level of autonomy.
It's the ironic process theory, isn't it?
The white bear problem.
Yes. The classic white bear problem. If I tell you to absolutely not under any circumstances, think of a white bear.
The only way your brain can ensure you aren't thinking of it is to constantly check in on the concept of the white bear.
Exactly, thereby forcing you to think about it.
Yes.
So if David Neal realized her creation was becoming too independent, her very terror and her active attempts to, quote, dissolve it,
Would require her to focus intensely on it.
which inadvertently feeds it more cognitive energy.
Exactly. The creator becomes hostage to the creation. The attention required to destroy the tulpa is the exact same currency the tulpa uses to survive.
That is genuinely terrifying.
It is. This dynamic where the thinker is overpowered by the thought isn't just a random mishap either.
It's built into the system.
It seems to be an occupational hazard built directly into the exacting mechanics of how these manifestations are constructed in the first place.
Let's get into those mechanics, because the text is clear that it's not just a matter of daydreaming really hard.
No, it's highly structured.
The traditional mechanism requires 3 specific components: sustained visualization, ritual, and mental discipline.
And we need to break down the sheer cognitive load of those 3 components.
Yeah.
Because they represent an exhausting amount of mental labor.
Let's start with sustained visualization.
Right. Sustained visualization is not just holding a fuzzy concept in your mind's eye. It is high-fidelity rendering.
Like 4K resolution in your brain.
Exactly. You are determining the exact texture of this entity, how it casts a shadow, how its weight displaces the floorboards, how it breathes.
Wow.
You are forcing your brain's visual cortex to construct a hallucination and hold it absolutely static.
It's like trying to manually run the physics engine of a video game using only your conscious working memory.
It's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
Normally, our brains filter out sensory information to save energy.
Right. Our brains are lazy by design.
Yes, but this practice demands that you artificially generate sensory information and force it into your field of perception.
And that's where the ritual and mental discipline come in, I assume.
Precisely. Ritual provides the structural framework, the repetitive actions and environmental cues that tell your brain, this specific focus is now my primary reality.
It locks it in.
And the mental discipline is the refusal to let the rendering drop. If your mind wanders for a second, the image degrades.
You have to maintain that projection continuously.
Until it burns itself into your cognitive baseline.
Okay, I can buy the psychology of that. If you subject yourself to extreme isolation, repetitive ritual, and exhausting cognitive strain,
You can absolutely induce a localized, highly convincing hallucination.
right, you can trick your own brain. I get that. But the accounts state that the end result of this process is that the thought form gains apparent independence. And crucially,
And this is the big one.
yeah, the text says it can be perceived by others.
Yes,
That is where I have to throw a flag on the play.
I understand why.
Like, I'm
But-
with you on subjective hallucination, but how do we even process that? How does a hallucination that I am rendering in my brain become visible to you sitting across the room?
That is the exact friction point that makes the tulpa such a destabilizing concept.
Yeah.
It forces us to define what we actually mean by perceived by others.
Okay, walk me through that. Because if I build a monster in my head, you shouldn't be able to see it unless I've somehow developed a Wi-Fi connection between our visual cortexes.
Well, the strictly mystical interpretation might argue for a literal physical manifestation. That sheer will has somehow reorganized local matter or energy.
Which is a huge leap.
It is. But if we look at this through a psychological or sociological lens, we don't need a supernatural explanation to understand how a delusion becomes shared.
How so?
Think about the mechanics of nonverbal communication and psychological contagion.
Okay.
We are deeply social creatures. We're constantly scanning each other for cues about our environment.
Right, micro-expressions, body language.
Exactly. If someone has engaged in this rigorous process and believes with absolute, unwavering certainty that there is an autonomous entity standing in the corner of the room,
Their body's going to react to it.
yes, that belief will dictate their every microexpression, their posture, their eye tracking, their physiological responses.
Ah, I see. So if I am absolutely terrified of the empty chair in the corner and my pupils are dilated and I am physically shrinking away from it,
I'm going to pick up on that thread.
because humans are wired to look at what other humans are scared of.
Exactly. I might not see the specific entity you are seeing, but I will perceive the presence of the entity through the gravity it exerts on your behavior.
Whoa.
Your absolute certainty infects my perception of the room,
It's like a localized, highly specific form of mass hysteria.
anchored by one person's unshakable delusion, yes. The entity breaches objective reality not by taking physical form, but by forcing the external environment to react to its existence.
That is a terrifying mechanism. You're weaponizing empathy and social cues to export your internal hallucination to the people around you.
It really is.
It really underscores why the original mystical traditions surrounded this practice with decades of philosophical grounding.
It is incredibly volatile.
It is. But what blows my mind is that this dangerous, high-stakes cognitive technology didn't just stay in the Himalayas or in the journals of 20th century explorers.
No, it did.
It leaped forward 100 years and mutated completely.
Yes, into an environment that is perhaps the least grounded and most volatile space imaginable.
The modern internet.
The modern internet.
We see the term tulpa adopted well outside of its original context by modern online communities.
They've rebranded the practice.
Yeah, as tulpamancy. And they aren't using it for spiritual enlightenment or philosophical deconstruction.
Not at all.
According to the text, they are deliberately cultivating a, quote, sentient feeling internal companion or personality through sustained attention and interaction.
The shift in intent here is staggering.
It really is.
We've moved from external terror to internal comfort, where Alexander David Neal was dealing with a rogue entity asserting its independence in her external environment.
Right, outside of herself.
Modern tulpamancers are actively attempting to furnish the internal space of their own minds. They're using the engine of sustained attention to partition their consciousness.
It sounds like modern internet users are reverse engineering this ancient mystic ritual into a psychological self-hack for companionship.
That's a very apt analogy.
It's essentially crowdsourcing a new kind of imaginary friend for adults, like partitioning a hard drive. You are sectioning off a piece of your brain's processing power, installing a secondary operating system, and letting it run concurrently with your primary identity.
Yes, and it speaks volumes about the current cultural moment.
How do you mean?
Why would thousands of people dedicate immense cognitive effort to build a personality in their heads? It points directly to an epidemic of isolation and a profound need for customized companionship.
That makes a lot of sense.
They're stripping away the spiritual dogma, bypassing the terrifying physical manifestation that David Neal struggled with, and utilizing the core cognitive mechanic to cure loneliness.
Just using the sustained focus part. But let's look at the phrasing in the text. A sentient feeling companion.
Yes, that's a very careful distinction.
Right. Is the modern tulpa actually a separate sentient consciousness living in the host's brain? Or is it an incredibly sophisticated, self-sustaining, imaginary friend?
Well, the subjective experience of the practitioner is that it feels entirely sentient.
But is it?
If you spend months engaging in conversational exercises with an imagined entity, forcing your brain to generate unscripted responses from a perspective other than your own,
You're doing a lot of heavy lifting.
you are heavily utilizing neural plasticity. You are strengthening neural pathways associated with that secondary persona until those pathways begin to fire automatically.
So it's like training a predictive text algorithm on your own phone.
That's a fantastic way to look at it.
At first, you have to manually type out every word of a complex sentence. But if you do it enough, the algorithm learns the pattern
And eventually it starts finishing the sentences for you.
in ways that might genuinely surprise you. The surprise creates the illusion of a second, independent mind.
And that illusion of independence is the goal. The modern practitioner finds deep comfort in that automated response.
Because it feels like someone else is there.
Exactly. It's fascinating how the exact same underlying mechanism, willing a thought form into existence, can yield such diametrically opposed results.
Yeah, in one context, it's a terrifying loss of mental control that haunts an explorer.
And in another, it's a psychological sanctuary, a curated support system built into the architecture of the user's own mind.
It really highlights the sheer adaptability of the human brain. We take this heavy, dangerous cognitive tool and we reforge it to fix whatever our immediate psychological problem is.
Humans are very resourceful.
But a concept this potent, this inherently dramatic, the idea that our thoughts can gain mass and autonomy, it doesn't just stay confined to mystic traditions or internet support forums.
No, it inevitably bleeds into art.
It is absolute narrative gold. And that transitions perfectly into how this concept is utilized in fiction and occult frameworks.
It does. The tulpa is a recurring device in weird fiction, paranormal writing, and Gothic narratives.
It fits so well.
And it serves a very specific structural purpose in those genres. It is the ultimate vehicle for thoughts made real.
Which is the skeleton key for a storyteller. Because if you look at traditional horror tropes, the threat is almost always external.
Right. A vampire, a ghost.
Exactly. It's a creature from the woods, a ghost bound to a physical house, an alien invasion. The rules of engagement are physical. You can run away, you can lock the door, you can hide in a bunker.
You have spatial options.
But if the monster is a tulpa, the call is quite literally coming from inside the house.
It removes the possibility of physical escape. You cannot outrun a monster that lives inside your own ability to concentrate.
It's the ultimate monster of our own making scenario. You can't run away from a monster that lives inside your own head.
Ah.
If you are generating the threat with your own cognitive power, the instinct to survive is what kills you.
It's a paradox.
Yeah. If you realize the monster is made of your own fear, your immediate reaction is, I have to stop being afraid, I have to stop thinking about it.
But as we discussed with the ironic process theory,
The white bear.
yes, actively trying not to think about the monster requires you to focus on the concept of the monster, which feeds it.
It is an inescapable, self-sustaining feedback loop of terror.
It is the absolute pinnacle of psychological horror. And this literary device shares a deep foundational instinct with actual grimoire traditions and folk magic, which the text also mentions.
Oh, interesting. How so?
In both historical occult practices and weird fiction, the underlying engine is the belief that human will, when channeled through specific rituals or intense emotional states, can enact tangible change in the physical world.
Okay, so it's all about willpower.
Right. The Tulpa concept just streamlines the process. It suggests you don't need the external props. You don't need the wands, the circles, the specific herbs,
The mind itself is the forge.
and the will is the weapon.
Wow. But the narrative doesn't stop at the individual level, does it?
No, it scales up.
Right, because we've been talking about one person, one explorer, one tulpamancer, one protagonist in a horror story, using their focus to create an entity.
But what happens when you multiply that?
Exactly. The text mentions a related occult concept that takes this exact mechanism and applies a terrifying multiplier to it, the egregore.
The egregore is where this entire conversation shifts from personal psychology to sociology.
Okay, lay it out for us. What is an egregore?
Well, if a tulpa is an individual's thought, made real through intense focus, an egregore is traditionally understood as a collective thought form.
A collective thought form.
Yes, it is an entity, a force, or an archetype that is willed into existence not by a single mind, but by the aggregate energy of a group, a society, or an entire culture.
So it's a group project. If a tulpa is a solo artist, the egregore is a massive symphony orchestra.
That's a perfect way to conceptualize it. In occult frameworks, when a large group of people share a single, intense focus,
Like what?
whether that's a shared religious devotion, a profound societal anxiety, or a collective hatred,
Oh, wow.
that pooled cognitive energy coalesces into an autonomous force. The egregore begins to take on a life of its own.
That's terrifying.
And more terrifyingly, it begins to influence the very people who created it, compelling them to act in ways that feed it more energy.
So it's the difference between you accidentally creating a ghost in your own living room and an entire city unintentionally manifesting a demon because they are all completely consumed by the same intense shared paranoia.
Yes, it scales the horror from a localized psychological breakdown to a cultural phenomenon.
That is just dark.
And this is why it provides such a rich, dark tapestry for weird fiction writers and philosophers to pull from. It speaks to our deep-seated anxiety about crowd psychology and mass movements.
Right, mob mentality.
Exactly. When you look at history, you can see moments where entire nations seem to be gripped by a collective madness, acting in service of an ideology that feels almost like a living, breathing entity demanding sacrifice.
Wow, yeah.
The concept of the egregore gives a supernatural vocabulary to a very real, very dangerous sociological mechanism.
It's a fascinating, massive escalation of the core premise. Let's just review the sheer distance we've covered today, tracing the evolution of this one singular idea.
The trajectory is staggering when you look at it from end to end.
It really is. I mean, to you listening, think about this journey. We started in the high altitudes of Tibetan mysticism with a rigorous, disciplined meditation practice designed to deconstruct the illusion of reality.
A deeply spiritual endeavor.
Right. And then we watched that practice get ripped from its cultural context and filtered through the impatient, results-oriented lens of the West.
Turning into the cautionary tale of a French explorer haunted by a rogue thought form she couldn't unthink.
a total nightmare scenario. And
Oh.
from there, we watch the concept get hijacked by the modern internet era, transformed into the practice of tulpamancy.
Where people use the exact same cognitive mechanics to build internal companions to stave off modern isolation.
And finally, we saw it bleed into the pages of weird fiction and occult theory, evolving into the terrifying concept of the egregore.
The collective monster born from societal obsession.
It's just wild.
And the reason this entire evolution matters to you, the listener, is that it ultimately doesn't matter whether you view the tulpa as a literal supernatural entity, a fascinating psychological glitch, or purely a clever narrative device.
Right, the label doesn't matter.
No. The core truth at the absolute center of this journey remains unchanged. It forces us to respect the sheer world-altering power of human attention.
It reminds us that our focus isn't just a passive camera recording reality, it is an active projector shaping it.
Exactly. What we choose to dwell on, what we feed with our daily mental energy, inevitably constructs the reality we experience.
Good or bad.
Yes, whether that reality is confined to the space inside our own heads or bleeds out into the shared space we navigate with others. It highlights the profound responsibility we have over our own cognitive bandwidth.
It really makes you reconsider the value and the potential danger of a wandering mind. Like, what are you actually building in there?
It does. And I want to leave you with one final lingering idea to chew on based on the mechanics we've unpacked today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We discussed the traditional claim that a tulpa can gain apparent independence and be perceived by others. And we just discussed the egregore, the collective thought form generated by group focus.
Right.
I want you to consider those elements in the context of the technological environment we inhabit right now.
Oh boy. I see where this is going, and I'm bracing myself.
Well, if an individual's intense, sustained attention can theoretically compartmentalize their mind or create a localized shared delusion,
Yeah.
what happens when you introduce a technology designed specifically to synchronize the attention of billions of people?
Oh, man.
What happens when an entire society focuses its collective mental concentration on a single, algorithmically amplified fear, anxiety, or desire?
You're talking about the internet. You're talking about the 24-hour news cycle and social media feeds.
I am. Our modern mass media and viral internet trends, with their unprecedented ability to force millions of human minds to focus on the exact same terrifying image or the exact same narrative of outrage at the exact same moment,
Yep.
are they accidentally functioning as massive industrial-scale egregore creation machines?
Wow.
Are we, right now, actively willing our cultural monsters, our deep societal divides, and our collective anxieties into real-world existence simply because the algorithm refuses to let us look away?
That is heavy. So the next time you find yourself doom scrolling or staring out the window completely lost in a vivid daydream about a worst-case scenario, maybe take a second to ask yourself, are you just thinking a thought? Or are you donating your processing power to build something much, much bigger? Keep questioning what you focus on.